What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected icons, calm, composed, and adored for her grace, is suddenly pushed to her breaking point on live television? When Halle Berry walks onto The View, no one expects the storm that's about to unfold. Cameras roll, lights burn bright, and in just minutes, the entire studio will be holding its breath. Because what you're about to hear, you won't believe actually happened. The air inside the View studio was electric that morning. Not in a good way, but in that tense, unpredictable kind of energy that makes you sit up straight. Whoopi Goldberg, the veteran moderator, shuffled her cards with a familiar calm, trying to settle the panel before cameras went live. Sunny Hostin leaned forward with her usual poised curiosity, while Joy Behar. Well, Joy was already smirking, her red glasses tilted low as if she was waiting to strike. The topic of the day? Empowerment, resilience, and the evolution of women in Hollywood. Halle Berry, dressed in an understated cream suit, eyes bright but steady, had come to promote her new project, a deeply personal film about strength, survival, and the human spirit. But something in her demeanor hinted that this wasn't just another press stop. She looked tired, not physically but emotionally, like someone who'd carried too much for too long and had finally decided to stop pretending. The show began. Whoopi smiled warmly. Please welcome the incredible, the one and only Academy Award-winning actress, Halle Berry. The audience erupted. Cheers, whistles, applause, the kind reserved for legends. Halle smiled, waved, and took her seat beside Sunny. For a moment, everything seemed fine. Whoopi began the conversation smoothly. Halle, it's been over 20 years since that historic Oscar win. You've broken barriers, you've inspired millions. How do you see your journey now, looking back? Halle's expression softened. Whoopi, for a long time I thought success meant staying quiet, being grateful, not rocking the boat. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that silence doesn't protect you. It just erases you. So now I speak up. The audience clapped, feeling the weight of her words. But as the applause faded, Joy Behar leaned in with that trademark grin, the kind that usually preceded trouble. Oh, come on, Halle, Joy said, chuckling. You've always had a voice. You're not exactly known for keeping quiet, are you? A murmur ran through the audience. Halle's smile faltered just slightly. She blinked once, slowly. I think there's a difference, Halle replied evenly, between being loud and being heard. Sunny shot Joy a warning glance. Whoopi's brows lifted. She'd seen this kind of moment before. Live TV could turn volatile fast, and Joy thrived on that line. But Joy wasn't done. No, you talk about empowerment, but there were times when people said you maybe played into the Hollywood system. The looks, the image. Some might say you benefited from it more than you suffered from it. The audience let out a collective gasp. A few nervous laughs bubbled up, but mostly it was silence, sharp and uneasy. Halle looked at her directly. Her hands tightened slightly in her lap. Are you saying my accomplishments were because of how I looked? Joy shrugged. Well, I'm saying Hollywood isn't fair, right? Some people get opportunities others don't. You know that. Sunny interjected. But that's not what she's here to discuss, Joy. She's talking about her experience, not her privilege. Joy leaned back, smirking again. I'm just asking questions. The phrase, I'm just asking questions, hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Halle's voice stayed calm, but the steel in it began to surface. It's always interesting when a woman of color speaks about her struggles, and someone immediately questions whether she's allowed to have them. The room shifted. The audience clapped, louder this time, sensing something real taking shape. Joy laughed lightly. Oh, come on, Halle. Don't make it about race. We're talking about Hollywood, not politics. Halle's expression changed. For the first time, her composure cracked, not in anger but in disbelief. She blinked again slowly, then leaned forward. You don't get to tell me what it's about, Joy, she said softly. You don't get to decide which part of my story matters. The crowd broke into applause again, this time thunderous. Whoopi glanced toward the producers offstage, subtly motioning for a break cue. But the cameras were still rolling, and the energy was too raw to stop. Joy smiled, pretending to laugh it off, but the tension in her jaw betrayed her. Relax, Halle. I'm not attacking you. You kind of are, Sunny said flatly. Joy's smile tightened. You're all so sensitive these days. Nobody can handle a question without turning it into a headline. Halle looked at her, then looked down. She took a slow breath, exhaled, and when she looked up again, something in her eyes had changed. This is the problem, she said. Every time a woman tries to tell her truth, Someone like you tries to dismiss it as oversensitivity. You call it drama. But it's not drama. It's lived experience. The words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. The audience erupted again. Some clapping, some murmuring, everyone feeling the shift. Whoopi finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. Okay, let's take a moment, everyone. We're gonna. But before she could finish, Joy muttered under her breath, just loud enough to be caught by the mic. Spare me the lecture. That was it. Halle turned toward her, eyes blazing. Excuse me? Joy didn't look back. You heard me. The entire set went silent. You could hear the hum of the studio lights. The tension was suffocating. Halle stood up, slowly, deliberately. Every motion was controlled, yet the anger beneath it was palpable. I came here to talk about my work, she said quietly. Not to defend my existence. Whoopi's mouth opened, but Halle wasn't finished. For decades, women like me have been told to smile through disrespect. To stay calm, stay pretty, stay quiet. But not today. The audience gasped. Someone in the back shouted, You tell her, Halle. Joy rolled her eyes, trying to shrug it off, but her voice wavered when she spoke next. You're being dramatic. Nobody disrespected you. That word, dramatic, it snapped something in Halle. She took a deep breath and said, You know what, Joy? Maybe I am. But at least I'm honest. Then she looked around the table, at Whoopi, at Sunny, at the stunned faces in the audience. I'm done. She turned, removed her microphone, and walked off the stage. The audience was frozen, half shocked, half cheering. The camera swung clumsily to Whoopi, who tried to salvage the moment. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. But the applause was already rising, wild, chaotic, electric. As Halle disappeared backstage, Joy sat back in her chair, face stiff, muttering something no one could quite hear. And just like that, the moment became legend, live, unfiltered, and unforgettable. Backstage, Halle's footsteps echoed down the hallway. Her hands trembled, but her jaw was set. She wasn't embarrassed. She wasn't regretful. She was free. And in that instant, America was divided between those who said she overreacted and those who finally saw her truth. The moment Halle Berry walked off that stage, it was as if the entire studio exhaled at once. A stunned silence lingered, broken only by the crackle of microphones and the low hum of the audience's uneasy chatter. The red on-air light above the cameras flickered out as the control room quickly cut to commercial. But the tension in that room didn't fade. It only deepened. Whoopi Goldberg leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Well, that went off the rails fast, she muttered, half to herself. Sunny Hostin looked at Joy, her expression cold and sharp. Joy, what was that? Seriously, what was that? Joy crossed her arms defensively. Oh, don't start, Sunny. I was asking questions. That's literally my job. That wasn't a question, Sunny shot back. That was provocation. The audience was still murmuring, many of them pulling out their phones, typing furiously. Some were whispering, others gesturing wildly toward the exit where Halle had disappeared. The energy in the room was chaotic, like a storm that had just passed but still left thunder in the distance. Whoopi sighed. Can we not turn this into another viral circus, please? Joy scoffed. Too late for that. The producers' voices echoed from the control booth. 2 minutes to live, one shouted. Another voice added, Do not, repeat, do not, mention the walk-off until we get confirmation from PR. Whoopi closed her eyes for a second, then looked at Joy. You need to chill, Joy. You can't just poke people like that on live television. Not everyone plays your little game. Joy leaned forward, glaring. Oh, so now it's my fault that she can't handle a little heat? Please. If she's that fragile, maybe she shouldn't be doing talk shows. Sunny let out a dry laugh. You really don't hear yourself, do you? The cameras blinked back to life. The stage lights flared again, and Whoopi straightened up instantly, slipping back into her professional calm. We're back, she said, her tone even. But nothing felt the same. The seats beside her looked painfully empty. One missing mic, one unoccupied chair where Halle Berry had sat just minutes earlier. Whoopi continued. Well, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. She forced a smile, but the show's rhythm was broken. The control room scrambled to cut to yet another ad. Backstage, however, the real storm was raging. Halle stood near the green room, surrounded by 2 assistants and a PR rep who looked like they'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. I'm done, Halle said quietly. I'm not going back out there. The PR rep, a nervous young man with trembling hands, stammered. Halle, they're saying maybe you can just Just finish the segment after break, just to wrap things up cleanly. No, Halle interrupted. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. I've smiled through worse, and I promised myself I'd never do it again. Not for a paycheck. Not for publicity. Not for anyone. She turned toward a mirror on the wall, her reflection hard and tired. The same face the world called flawless, now showing cracks of exhaustion, of truth. Her assistant, Maya, stepped closer. You handled that perfectly, Halle. You didn't lose your cool. You told your truth. Halle shook her head. People will twist it. They always do. Then let them, Maya said softly. At least they'll know what line not to cross. Back on stage, Joy was restless. She kept glancing off camera, muttering under her breath. It's ridiculous. These actors come here expecting a love fest. If they can't take a question, don't sit on the view. Sunny leaned in, her tone sharp. You didn't ask a question, Joy. You challenged her identity. There's a difference. Oh, please, Sunny. No, Sunny cut her off. I'm serious. You did it to Meghan Markle, you did it to Jada Pinkett, and now Halle. You hide behind that, I'm just asking routine, but what you're really doing is undermining women who don't fit your comfort zone. Joy blinked, caught off guard by the directness. For once, she had no quick comeback. Whoopi glanced toward the control booth again. The producers looked panicked. Phones were already ringing. Social media was blowing up. Within minutes, the hashtag Halle Berry walks off was trending. Clips of the exchange, raw, shaky, recorded from audience phones, began spreading across X and TikTok. Joy Behar disrespects Halle Berry on The View. Halle Berry stands up for herself, live. Another meltdown on The View? The narratives clashed instantly. In one corner of the internet, people praised Halle for standing her ground. In another, critics accused her of overreacting. But what nobody could deny was this: the clip had gone viral. The world was watching. Backstage, a producer cautiously approached Halle again. We just want to make sure you're okay, he said. We can cut around it, or even issue a statement. Don't, Halle said, still staring at the mirror. Don't spin it. Don't clean it up. Just let it be what it is. The producer hesitated. That's going to blow up. It already has, Halle said quietly. At least now people know what I stand for. A few feet away, a young intern whispered to another staffer. She looked like she was about to cry before she walked off. She didn't cry, the other corrected. She chose her dignity. Meanwhile, the show struggled to recover. When they finally returned live, Whoopi did what she did best: calm the chaos with quiet authority. Folks, Whoopi said, looking into the camera, sometimes conversations get heated. We're all human, and live television means you see it all, the good, the bad, and the real. We'll be right back. Joy frowned, clearly irritated. We're not going to pretend she didn't just storm off like a diva, she whispered under her breath. Sunny turned to her, eyes flashing. You keep calling women divas when they demand respect. You ever notice that? The crew looked uncomfortable. The studio audience didn't clap this time. They just watched, a silent, uneasy crowd sensing that they'd witnessed something bigger than a celebrity spat. As soon as the segment ended, Joy grabbed her coffee and stormed off the set. The moment she was out of frame, she muttered, "Unbelievable. The internet's gonna crucify me for this." Whoopi followed her slowly. Maybe you should think about why, Joy. Outside, fans were already gathering near the studio doors. Some held up signs, "We stand with Halle." Others shouted her name as she stepped into her car, head high, expression unreadable. A TMZ camera caught her in that moment. "Halle, can we get a comment? What happened with Joy Behar?" Halle stopped for half a second, looked directly into the lens, and said, "You all saw what happened. Some things don't need explaining." Then she got into the car, and it drove away. The clip hit every entertainment outlet within the hour. Entertainment Tonight, E! News, Variety, CNN Entertainment. All replaying the same 20 seconds. Halle standing, removing her mic, and saying, "I'm done." By nightfall, Joy Behar's name was trending alongside Halle's. Comment sections flooded with debates, think pieces, and hot takes. She overreacted. No, Joy was disrespectful. Why do women of color have to keep proving themselves on these shows? This is another example of The View crossing the line. Even celebrities chimed in. Taraji P. Henson tweeted, proud of Halle. Grace under fire. And Viola Davis posted, "When a woman sets her boundaries, believe her." By midnight, Joy released a short statement through her representative. It was a misunderstanding during a passionate discussion. "I respect Halle Berry and wish her the best." But by then, the damage was done. Behind the closed doors of ABC headquarters, executives were in a panic. A senior producer muttered to another, "If this keeps trending, we'll have to issue an official apology tomorrow." Meanwhile, in her hotel room overlooking the city, Halle sat alone by the window. The lights of Manhattan flickered below her, her phone buzzing nonstop with texts and notifications. She didn't open them. Instead, she leaned back, closed her eyes, and let out a long breath. Maya, her assistant, entered quietly. "It's all over the news," she said softly. "You're everywhere." Halle gave a faint smile. "I know. Do you regret it?" Maya asked. Halle turned to face her. Her voice was calm now, no anger, no defensiveness. Just quiet certainty. "No," she said. "I finally said what I should have said years ago." Outside, thunder rumbled faintly over the skyline. And inside that still hotel room, Halle Berry, once again, had changed the conversation. The next morning, Manhattan woke up to chaos. Not the usual rush-hour chaos of yellow cabs and morning commuters, but the kind that only comes when the internet can't stop talking about one thing. Every entertainment show, every trending feed, every late-night headline read some variation of the same words. Halle Berry walks off live on The View after Joy Behar clash. Clips of the moment were replaying on loop. Slowed down, zoomed in, analyzed from every angle. The internet had turned a tense 2-minute exchange into a cultural earthquake. Whoopi Goldberg sat alone in her dressing room, sipping coffee, her phone lighting up with messages. Some were from friends, others from producers. One was from a familiar name. Halle handled herself with grace. "Don't let them twist it." It was from Viola Davis. Whoopi smiled faintly, shaking her head. "You always see right through the noise," she murmured. Meanwhile, in another wing of the ABC building, Joy Behar was not smiling. She was pacing, furious, defensive, and visibly shaken, though she'd never admit it. Her phone had been ringing nonstop since 5 a.m. reporters, bloggers, even old friends from stand-up comedy days asking what really happened. She threw her phone onto the couch. "They're turning me into the villain again," she snapped at her producer, Lisa, who stood quietly by the door. Lisa spoke carefully. "Joy, it's not good. The clip's been viewed over 20 million times in less than 12 hours. "Good," Joy barked. "That means people care." "Joy, they're not cheering for you," Lisa said softly. "They're calling you condescending, disrespectful. Some are even saying you should apologize on air." Joy's jaw tightened. "Apologize? For what?" "Asking a question. Everyone's so damn sensitive now. I can't say a word without someone twisting it into something I didn't mean." Lisa hesitated, then said what no one else dared to. "Maybe that's the problem, Joy. Maybe you meant it more than you realize." Joy's eyes narrowed. "Watch it, Lisa." At that same hour, Sunny Hostin sat in her car in the ABC parking lot, scrolling through her phone. Her own name was trending now too, mostly because people were praising her for standing up for Halle during the segment. She sighed. "They don't see the half of it," she muttered. A text came through from Halle herself. "Thank you for having my back." Sunny smiled softly, typing back, "Always. You didn't deserve that." Then another message came in, this one from a producer. "Meeting at 10 a.m. Network wants to discuss damage control." By 10:15, the entire panel was seated in a conference room on the 19th floor. Joy, Whoopi, Sunny, the executive producer, and a handful of PR reps sat around the long glass table. A silence hung over them like fog. The producer, a balding man named Mark, cleared his throat. "So we all know why we're here. Yesterday's episode was explosive." Joy interrupted dryly. "Unfortunate," he corrected, glaring at her. "The network is receiving complaints. Halle's team has requested that her segment not be re-aired or clipped without her approval." Whoopi leaned back, her tone firm but measured. "Then don't air it. It's simple." Joy scoffed. "Oh, come on, Whoopi. Since when do we start censoring reality? It happened. People saw it. You can't unsee it." Sunny folded her arms. "That's exactly why you should have thought before speaking." Joy turned to her sharply. "Excuse me?" Sunny didn't flinch. "You made a loaded comment about a woman's success being tied to her looks. You don't get to pretend it was harmless." "Oh, give me a break," Joy snapped. "We're all adults. Halle's been in this business long enough to take a little heat." It's the View, not Sesame Street. Whoopi sighed. And yet, we're the ones cleaning up the mess. Mark stepped in, trying to regain control. Ladies, please. The issue now is optics. The headlines are killing us. The sponsors are calling. We need a statement today. Joy shook her head. I'm not apologizing for telling the truth. It's not about truth, Sunny said. It's about respect. The words hit Joy harder than she expected. For a brief second, her eyes softened. Then she looked away, masking the flicker of guilt with sarcasm. Respect goes both ways. The meeting dragged on, but one thing became clear. Joy wasn't going to bend. When it finally ended, Whoopi walked out first, muttering under her breath. Same story, different day. Sunny followed close behind, exhaling deeply. You know she's not going to apologize, right? Whoopi nodded. Nope. But she'll feel it when the world keeps playing that clip over and over again. Back in her dressing room, Joy opened her phone again. And this time, she made the mistake of scrolling through the comments. Joy Behar should retire already. Halle handled herself with class. Joy Behar equals out of touch. When a black woman speaks truth, white fragility always shows up. Joy's face tightened. She tossed the phone aside again, her chest heaving. They don't even know me, she muttered. They don't know what I've been through. But deep down, somewhere beneath her irritation, she did know. This time, she'd gone too far. That night, Halle Berry appeared on The Tonight Show. Unplanned, a last-minute invitation after the viral storm. Jimmy Fallon greeted her with open arms, sensing the story everyone wanted to hear. So, Halle, Jimmy began carefully, I have to ask, you made headlines this week. The internet's been buzzing about your appearance on The View. How are you feeling? The audience chuckled nervously. Halle smiled faintly, but her eyes carried weight. I'm fine, Jimmy. Really. It's just, sometimes people forget that behind every celebrity, there's still a human being. And when that humanity gets disrespected, you either swallow it, or you walk away. The crowd erupted into applause. Jimmy nodded, clearly impressed. You handled it with a lot of grace. Grace doesn't mean silence, Halle replied. It means knowing when to stop giving away your peace. It was a mic drop moment, subtle, poised, and devastatingly honest. Within hours, that clip went viral too. Hashtags like #GraceNotSilence and #TeamHalle trended across platforms. Meanwhile, Joy sat at home, watching it play out on her television. She turned off the volume, the sound of applause echoing faintly in her mind. For the first time in years, Joy Behar didn't have a joke. The next morning on The View, the energy was different. The studio audience was packed, curiosity crackling in the air. The producers had begged Joy to open the show with a statement, something to ease the backlash, to show accountability. The red light came on. Whoopi looked at the camera. Welcome back to The View. Yesterday's episode sparked a lot of conversation, and before we move forward, Joy would like to say a few words. The audience went silent. Joy shifted in her seat. Her hands trembled slightly beneath the table. Look, she began, forcing a tight smile. Yesterday got heated. And maybe I said something that came off the wrong way. I didn't mean any disrespect to Halle Berry or anyone else. I respect her talent and her career. It wasn't much of an apology, but it was something. The crowd offered a lukewarm clap. Sunny watched her quietly. Whoopi gave a small nod as if to say, good enough for now. But online, people weren't buying it. Fake apology. She's only sorry because she got called out. Halle deserves better. By afternoon, Halle posted a short note on Instagram. It wasn't angry. It wasn't long. Just a photo of her walking away from the stage, back turned, with the caption. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It hit millions like a quiet explosion. Even Joy saw it. She stared at her phone for a long while before putting it down. Wisdom, she whispered. Guess I could use some of that. In the days that followed, ratings for The View spiked. Every outlet debated what had happened. Pundits framed it as a cultural reckoning, a moment that revealed how women, race, and respect still collided in messy, public ways. But for Halle, the noise had faded. She was back on set, filming her next project, carrying herself with that same quiet dignity. When a reporter asked if she'd ever return to The View, she just smiled and said, maybe someday, when it's about the work, not the war. And that line, like everything else she'd said that week, went viral again. The storm didn't end with Halle Berry's walk-off. It was only beginning. By the end of that week, the moment had become one of the most dissected segments in television history. Every news cycle, Every podcast, every talk show host had an opinion. And in the digital age, opinions spread faster than facts ever could. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a cultural debate. Was Halle Berry right to walk off? Did Joy Behar cross a line? Or was this just another overblown celebrity feud? The internet had inflated into something bigger than it was. But beneath the noise, something deeper was happening. People were listening. Across TikTok and Instagram, women, young, old, black, white, were sharing their own stories. Videos began with the same haunting phrase. When I saw Halle walk off, I felt that. They talked about moments when they'd stayed silent, swallowed disrespect, or smiled through humiliation. Halle's decision to walk away had lit a spark that resonated far beyond daytime television. At ABC, the atmosphere was tense. Executives held emergency meetings behind closed doors. PR teams working overtime to craft statements that could please everyone but offend no one. One afternoon, Whoopi Goldberg sat quietly in her dressing room as her phone buzzed with yet another email thread. She ignored it. She'd seen 1,000 controversies come and go on The View. But this one felt different. It had a moral weight to it. There was a knock on her door. Sunny stepped in. You see the ratings? Whoopi raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Sky high. Through the roof, Sunny said, sighing. You'd think we staged the whole thing. Whoopi chuckled bitterly. That's the thing about truth. People always think it's scripted because it's too uncomfortable to be real. Sunny sat down across from her. You think Joy's gonna survive this? Whoopi shrugged. She survived worse. But this time, I think it hit somewhere she didn't expect. And she was right. That night, Joy Behar sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by half-drunk glasses of wine and an open laptop filled with articles tearing her apart. Joy Behar accused of disrespect. Fans demand apology. Time for Joy to retire? She scrolled past them, her jaw tight, but her eyes softer than usual, almost regretful. She clicked open Twitter, hovered over the new post button, then hesitated. What was there to say? Anything she wrote would be twisted, mocked, dissected. For once, Joy Behar, the loudest voice in every room, said nothing. Instead, she turned off her phone, sank into her couch, and whispered into the silence. Maybe I did go too far. The next morning, Good Morning America ran an unexpected segment titled, The Walk-Off Heard Round the World. It wasn't sensational. It was reflective. Clips of Halle's calm but powerful words played over gentle background music. The anchor's voice narrated. While some saw drama, others saw courage. The courage to set a boundary, to stand up when respect turns into ridicule. The camera cut to a video of Halle Berry walking into a charity event later that night. Smiling, graceful, confident. Reporters called out questions, but she didn't take the bait. She just smiled, waved, and said, Let's focus on something positive for a change. And that simple sentence, kind but firm, did more damage to Joy's narrative than any argument could. That afternoon, Halle sat in her hotel suite, scrolling through her messages. Thousands of DMs poured in, from fans, from fellow actresses, even from producers and directors she'd worked with years ago. One message stood out. You reminded us all what dignity looks like. She set her phone down, her eyes glistening. Meanwhile, at The View, the next live episode felt heavy. Even the audience seemed subdued, uncertain how to react. Joy took her seat quietly. No jokes. No smirk. Just silence. Whoopi opened the show with her usual calm authority. Before we start today, we just want to acknowledge the conversation that's been happening all week. Sometimes, moments on this show hit nerves we didn't expect. Sometimes they start bigger conversations. And that's part of why The View exists. She turned to Joy gently. Joy, anything you want to add? Joy looked into the camera, not smiling, not performing. For once, just being human. Yeah, she said softly. I said something that came out wrong. And I've had a lot of time to think about it. I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. So, to Halle, and to everyone watching, I'm sorry. The audience went quiet. Then slowly applause began. It wasn't thunderous. It wasn't wild. It was respectful, a collective sigh of relief. Sunny glanced at Whoopi, who gave a small nod. Backstage, producers exchanged looks of surprise. No one had forced Joy to do it. She'd made the decision herself, off script. Later that day, Halle saw the clip. She didn't react with glee or smugness, she just nodded. Good, she whispered. Growth. Hours later, Halle appeared on Instagram Live, unplanned, unscripted. She spoke directly to her fans, her tone calm, sincere, and warm. "I've seen all your messages," she said, smiling softly. "And I want to say thank you. Not for defending me, but for listening. For turning something messy into a moment of reflection. Sometimes we forget that behind the lights and cameras, we're all just people learning, stumbling, trying to be better. That's what this was for me, and I hope for others too." The comments flooded in instantly. Hearts, praises, messages of support. And just like that, the narrative shifted again. It was no longer Halle versus Joy. It was Halle and Joy, two women who collided, clashed, and somehow forced a bigger conversation into the world. That night, Joy posted a brief message on X. No PR polish. No sarcasm. Just a few words. "We grow when we listen. Lesson learned." The post went viral. By the weekend, the noise had finally begun to fade. News outlets moved on to the next story, as they always do. But the clip, that moment of Halle standing, unhooking her mic, and walking off, never really disappeared. It became a symbol. A moment of clarity in an industry built on noise. Weeks later, Halle attended a film festival where she received an award for her latest project. When she walked onto the stage, the audience stood in applause before she even said a word. She smiled, taking it all in. Then, in her acceptance speech, she said something that sent chills through the room. "I learned something this year. Strength isn't always about staying. Sometimes it's about walking away and knowing your worth even when others don't." The room erupted. Cameras flashed. And for the first time in a long while, Halle Berry wasn't just celebrated for her talent. She was celebrated for her truth. Outside the venue, a young journalist asked her, "If you could go back, would you handle that moment with Joy any differently?" Halle paused, her eyes thoughtful. "No," she said, "because sometimes the most powerful thing a woman can do is know when enough is enough." As the cameras faded to black and the lights of the festival shimmered around her, it was clear. This wasn't just another celebrity controversy. It was a cultural moment. One that would live on in reels, in classrooms, in conversations about respect and resilience for years to come. And somewhere in the quiet of her dressing room back at the View, Joy Behar watched the replay, smiled faintly, and whispered to herself, "Good for her." So what do you think? Was Halle Berry right to walk off that day? Did Joy Behar deserve the backlash, or was it a case of two strong women clashing under pressure? Tell us what you think in the comments below. We want to hear your take on this unforgettable showdown. And don't forget, subscribe to Prime Narrator for more explosive, emotional, and cinematic stories just like this one. Because the truth isn't always calm. Sometimes it walks off live on television.